Hangouts, and I want to thank everybody here for joining me on Google and Periscope. And we're going to be talking about my book, Power Branding Secrets, which you can go to powerbranding.secrets.com to find out more about. My book's going to be officially released on July 21st, and this book really came about from a purpose that I had, which was to help small business owners, entrepreneurs, and startups with their branding. Typically, startups, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, coaches, small business people, they don't have either one, the know-how of how to do their branding and marketing right, or number two, they don't have the know-how to do it correctly. My background, I'll give you a little bit about my background. I've been coaching and educating people about marketing and branding for over 20 years. I've lectured over 10,000 people on the subject of marketing and a whole host of various business aspects. And during that time, I've gotten a lot of feedback from chiropractors, dentists, doctors, CPAs, small business owners, large business owners on the struggles that they've had. And, you know, the biggest problem is, how do I get more customers? How do I actually use the internet and social media to get attention and drive more customers? So what I did after years and years of coaching and answering the same questions over and over and over, I not only was educating people on these various topics, but I was also implementing these strategies. These strategies are listed in this book. This book is not some theoretical, what I feel is good for business to grow. These are tried, time-tested principles that I not only use for myself, but I have used over and over with many, many small businesses. During that time, while teaching, I've written about 400 blog articles, about 300 on my own blogs, about 75 of them on LinkedIn platform, and I've done about 25 guest blog posts. And this is not including the podcasts or the other types of content that I've created over the years. So I'm very well versed in video content, blog content. I have about 30,000 followers on social media, and I've tweeted over 30,000 times. And I just recently returned back from Denmark, where I have a marketing client. I also was in Ireland and New Orleans this year, servicing various marketing clients. And as of today, I just got an invite to go to Costa Rica. So I know my principles are not only tried and true, but they resonate with people all over the world. My real purpose for writing this book is, I'm a patriot, and I have this purpose to help revive the small business, because America is built on the small business. We were founded by entrepreneurs, we were built by entrepreneurs, and still to this day, entrepreneurs, according to the Small Business Administration, employ about 67% of Americans. So if you really wanted to see, huge job growth in America, what you would do is you would help the small business person. In my book, one of the first things that I do is I define what branding is, and I'll tell you why this is. When I speak with people about their branding, it gets to be a very generic term. They will, I remember this one very significant conversation I had about 6 months ago, and this conversation was about their branding. And they said, Ed, I don't want to do any marketing. What I want to do is I want to work on my branding. Now, to me, you can't work on your branding and not work on your marketing. And the reason why someone would say something like this is because they don't understand the terms marketing and branding, or what they actually entail. So what they entail is very exact actions. So let me define for you what branding is. In my book, I provide about 7 or 8 definitions of branding from leading experts in the field. these are people that are very well tried and true people that know what they're talking about. They know what branding is. And so I look to them to find out what their definition is. Okay. To me, what a brand is your distinctive, indispensable attributes and value. And in my book, I break down what that definition means. What does distinctive mean? What does indispensable mean? What are your attributes and what are your values? And I give real life examples of brands that have become distinctive. And yes, I do cite large brands that we're all familiar with, but I also, in my book, go over examples of small businesses, startups, and entrepreneurs who have built successful brands that aren't necessarily the Apple or the Starbucks or the Tiffany or the Mercedes-Benz. Very often when I would read blogs or articles about branding, the only examples they would give were these large brands. And to the small business person and the entrepreneur and the startup, this doesn't really open the door to being effective with branding. Sorry on Google, my computer shakes a little bit for knocking on the table, so I'll try to get better at that. So I believe that the first thing that has to be done, and what I do in my book, is I define what branding is. And to get that in more depth, if you take a look at what a brand, how the word started, it's a German word that means to burn. You know, cowboys would actually burn a mark on their cattle. And, or, you know, when I was in Ireland, what I found is that they still to this day, they paint the sheep. And by the color of the paint and the style of the paint, or on the brand of the cow, they burn this image. And so you know what animal is yours and what animal is the neighbor's. Well, that concept has now come to business where there's very distinctive factors that make a business unique as opposed to another. And because people have so many choices today, you have to be distinctive. Now, how do you become distinctive in a world where everybody's trying to be distinctive? And in my book, I describe the branding triangle. The branding triangle goes over what I feel and what I have discovered are the three fundamentals of branding. The first one is what we would refer to as the brand identity. The brand identity is typically what people consider to be branding in today's world. The brand identity are the things about the brand that we can see or touch or hear. For example, the logo, we can see the logo. The tagline, we can read the tagline, we can hear the tagline in radio ads or television. The style of the building, when you walk into a Starbucks, you know it's a Starbucks. That's part of the branding. The packaging, the jingles, you know, these various things, if we can hear it or touch it or read it or listen to it, these are the things that make up the brand identity. Now, in the days of old, you know, that's all you had to do. You know, back in the days of Mad Men and the 60s and 70s, having a unique brand identity was all that you really needed, that and a lot of advertising dollars. So, you know, examples are like the Marlboro Man, you know, the Hathaway Man with the patch over his eye for the Hathaway shirts, or maybe 7-Up was the Uncola. And that's all you really needed. You needed just a singular distinctive part of the brand identity. You pushed out the message and you sold a lot of products. Well, what changed all that was the internet, because now the internet was an even playing field for brands. And not only was it an even playing field for brands, but it brought about something that no one was expecting, which was transparency. That transparency was, you know, did you really deliver what you say you were going to deliver? What was the ethics level of the corporation? What were, you know, the behind the scenes? And I'll give you an example of you can have a brand identity, but you can have a damaged brand. So you take an example like SeaWorld. SeaWorld has got all the branding, the taglines, the ads, they got everything. But their brand right now is being killed because someone else began to brand SeaWorld as a bunch of whale bullies and people that are harming animals. There was a documentary that came out about SeaWorld, and all of a sudden there was a new level of transparency for SeaWorld, and they came under extreme fire, not only PR-wise, but legally. There were, governments that wanted to pass bills against SeaWorld, and there's been a whole public outcry against SeaWorld and their practices. So although SeaWorld has managed properly maybe their brand identity internally, there's these other factors that are branding SeaWorld. Okay, so that's the first part of the triangle. The second part of the branding triangle is what we would call content management. And content management is the first responsibility of a brand, which is to put out information about the brand, what the brand is doing, how the brand is servicing, answers to common questions regarding the brand. And this has exploded with the internet, with Google Hangouts, with Periscope, blogs, podcasts, press releases online, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, ebooks. I mean, it just exploded into a huge, not only a huge opportunity for brands, but it became a huge problem for brands. So a brand can't just sit on its identity anymore. A brand has actually got to create branded content in the form of stories, frequently asked questions, online reviews, all this type of information. And brands that understand branding understand that branded content is a vital aspect of their brand. And I'll give you an example. No one's really going to know who I am just because I have a great logo, a great tagline. That's not going to cut it. No matter how well I get my brand identity, if I'm not publishing something, and this is really what the internet has forced us to do, is brands now have to become publishers of information. They've got to blog, they've got to create videos. Otherwise, people go onto Google or Yahoo, Bing, or Twitter or YouTube, and they type in your name and they type in your brand, and what if they find absolutely nothing from you? Or even worse, what if they find out information that somebody else created about your brand? Like a negative review, or maybe they did a video about you that was a joke, or they wrote an article about you that was less than favorable. And all of a sudden, people started contacting marketing and branding people like myself going, I've got bad reviews, I've got people saying things, I've got articles about me and it's not showing my favorable light. How do I get rid of it? Well, the bottom line is you can't get rid of it often. It's going to stay there. What you have to do is you're going to have to take control of your content management and actually start to create content that's going to forward the message and the story of your brand. Now, for myself, the easiest way to create content for my brand was to blog, was to write articles, how-to articles, insights about marketing. So I would go out and consult people, and they would bring me common problems, and guess what I would do? I would go back and I would research that out about how to solve that problem. We'd solve that problem, and I'd start writing articles about it. Or there would be findings about a particular topic that was of interest, maybe email marketing, video marketing, etc. And I would throw my 2 cents in about that particular style of creating and managing content. Concurrently, in part of that content management, part of that triangle is you got to grow your audience. So concurrently to creating content, I had to grow my audience. I started getting more followers on email. I started growing my followers on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Google+, and now I have about 30,000 followers on about 6 major channels of social media. So not only do I have to manage the content, but I have to spend just as much time in managing the development of the audience and getting my content to that audience. So as I built up my email list and as I built up my followers, I then started sharing my content. And guess what started to happen? it was shared, it was viewed, it was consumed, and lo and behold, I started getting what we refer to as inbound leads, meaning, hey, Ed, I've been reading your articles through the email, or we're friends on Facebook, or I've been following you on Google Plus or LinkedIn, and I would like to sit down with you to see what you can do to offer these solutions that you're talking about in your blog or talking about in your video, of how you can actually bring those solutions to me. The majority of my clients are through referrals, but the referral sources know me through my branded content. So branded content becomes a vital aspect of branding yourself as an expert. Now, I'll give you one pointer here. The word authority is derived from the word author, interestingly enough. So how do we know authorities in any space? How do we determine? It is what content they author. What are they promoting? What are they pushing out? Why is Oprah Winfrey an authority? Because Oprah Winfrey puts out content. She has a TV show. She has a book. She has a magazine. She has a blog. She guest appearances on all different types of shows. I mean, she is her own machine of content. Mark Cuban made a lot of money in business and with the Mavericks, but then he became on the Shark Tank, and now he's creating even more content in terms of interviews and shows and things like this, and his wealth has only grown. So to become an authority in the eyes of others and to be someone who's trusted, you're going to have to be a brand that manages your content. And in summary, content management is creating content that's on point. It's based on people's needs and wants. You're telling it in an interesting and intriguing manner. It's answering questions. It's fulfilling needs. And it's going to an ever-growing audience. If a brand who's got a good image, a good identity, who also does this brand management, or this content management, they're going to grow their audience, and they're going to grow inbound leads and consumers. So that's the second part. Now let's go into the third part. The third part is client relations, or we could say, customer management or service. Now, how many brands have got a great identity? They put out content, but then when you arrive to the business, the experience sucks. The consumer experience sucks. You go to a coffee house, or you go to a restaurant that supposedly everybody's talking about. You hear about good reviews. They got good content. You've heard you've driven by, their identity seems pretty legit. And you go in and the waiter is rude. The service is slow. The drinks are weak. It's just a bad experience. Well, eventually, those customer experiences will brand the brand. You can't get away from that anymore. Maybe 30 or 40 years ago, you could get away with it. But today, what happens when someone has a bad experience? They get on their cell phone and they tweet the brand, or they tweet all their friends going, this brand sucks, or they go on Facebook, or they leave a review on Google My Business or Yelp or Urban Spoon. And if that brand does not create an amazing experience, sooner or later, that experience will actually go out into the universe, out into social media, out onto Yelp, and that word of mouth, good or bad, is going to spread like wildfire. So now a brand has really got three important aspects if they're going to nail this branding down and really succeed as a brand and be distinctive. And each part of this triangle is an important aspect of being distinctive as a brand. If the brand identity is distinctive, it's tasteful, it suits the audience. Number two, it's publishing content that's on point, engaging, interesting, funny, humorous, tear-jerking. It elicits some type of emotion or answers some type of question. And then when they finally decide to actually consume the brand, that experience is amazing. Guess what? You now have what's called a brand advocate, and they become your voice, and they become probably the most powerful branding force there is. We can cite many brands who've got extreme loyal followers, and these loyal followers are, without question, why the brand is successful. The Grateful Dead, they would play for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. They would let everybody, videotape or record their music. They weren't into stopping people, and their word of mouth grew. And so a great brand understands these factors, that it not only has to get a great brand identity in terms of a logo, a tagline, the packaging, the colors, the sounds, all that stuff, but they've also then got to take from that point of position of who they are. They now have to publish things. This is what we do. Here's how we service the community. Here's what it's like to be at our business. Here's some common answers to what our brand does. Here's some solutions that we've brought to other people like yourself, and we want to share those, those case studies or those customer reviews. And then when the person gets this branded content and they get your service, and it's a great service, it's amazing, and they're like, man, it's everything that the brand identity promised. It's everything that your branded content said it would be. This amazing service now matches everything that you've been promising and promoting. Well, that to me is a power brand. Now, I'm sure you could think of plenty of examples of brands that get it right. And I'm not just talking about big brands. There could be a very small brand within your own hometown, and I'll give you one here. If you know me, you know I love coffee. And there's a local coffee house in Orange County called the Lost Bean. And it's kind of a cute name, and they've got an interesting logo. And their whole uniqueness, their differentiator, is that all their coffee and all their ingredients for their coffee is organic. They don't do GMO. They don't do, they get their beans from farms that don't use pesticides. And so everybody knows that it's going to be a coffee that's less detrimental to their body than coffee that, let's say, is GMO. Okay, so there's their brand identity. So what's their branded content? Well, they started to create videos, and they started to grow their followers on Instagram, and they had contests for people to post on Instagram, and they asked people to check in on Facebook, and all of a sudden, they started putting out branded content. The reviews started to grow, right? So they're ranking higher in search engines and Google and Yelp, because there's all this content that's being created, consumer-generated content, and they made an effort to get that content by going, hey, if you check in on Yelp or you check in on Facebook or Google, we'll give you 10% off on your coffee. Well, what does that do when you ask somebody to check in? Well, that prompts them to be on Yelp, and they go, well, now since I've checked in, I might as well leave a review. So without asking for the review, in actual fact, they were being proactive in driving the person to a site that would create content for them. But they knew that if they're going to ask somebody to create this branded content for them, the second part of the triangle, they had to make the consumer experience really, really good. So if you go to the Lost Bean, they've got these very lively and vivacious and kind of cute baristas. It's a very fast-paced scene, and they remember your name, and the owner's there saying, waving hello to you and remembering your name as well, asking how your day was. It's almost like going to your living room. So they ensured that there was kind of this small town home feeling when you walked into their coffee place. It wasn't corporate. It wasn't, like Starbucks has got this whole patter of can we please help our next guest? And it's all drilled, and it's all like right out of a manual, right? Well, guess what? Lost Bean doesn't have a manual. It's just like, be nice to people. And so they got people dressed in whatever and nose rings and earrings and tattoos and weird hairstyles, and it's eclectic and it's kind of funky and hippie. But guess what? It's got personality. It's got distinctiveness. And so that has really allowed Lost Bean to not, it's not that it's more than just not Starbucks. It's that it's a unique local place. Okay. Now, that's an example of how a local brand has built a great identity, fostered great content, is now putting out more content, is giving a great consumer experience, and guess what? The Lost Bean is now opening their second coffee shop in Anaheim at that new train station, and now they're putting plans to open up a roaster and a third coffee place in Santa Ana. Why? Because now the brand has really perfected this triangle to where you really want to be as a business, which is you can now replicate the brand. Once you get this thing down the first time and it becomes a system, a replicatable system, guess what? The brand now can go out and move out over and over and over. All of this that I'm going over with you is covered in Power Branding Secrets. Some of the other things that I go over in my book is I talk about blogging. Blogging is an incredible way to brand your business. And not only that, it's a great SEO way to attract inbound leads. I know this to be true. I've written a lot of blogs. Another thing I go over, and this is a critical point here, and this gives a lot of aha moments, particularly to a lot of C-level executive CEOs, is how does marketing and sales work together? As I go over my book, and many studies have shown, branding and marketing, these two departments, they don't talk to each other in most companies. Branding is over here trying to build an image. Sales is over here trying to get sales. The salespeople resent the branding people because they don't think the branding people understand what the hell they're doing. And the branding people kind of look down on the salespeople going, well, we're these artistic types and you don't understand our artistic abilities. Well, believe it or not, if you resolve this point, and I have done this, when you bring branding and sales together as a team, the exponential factor for driving revenue is amazing. I went over this one point with a startup CEO, very successful guy in Newport Beach, and I was pitching him, and he said, Ed, he asked me to tell him what I could do for his company. And he said, Ed, I've listened to you for about 20 minutes, and I really appreciate being here, but can I just be honest with you? Most of you marketing guys are just full of crap. And what are you going to do for me? Because to be honest with you, I just don't believe anything that you're saying. And in 5 minutes, I handled it, and I closed the contract, and I'm getting another contract. And this is what I told him. This is not his real name, and I'll not use his real name. But I said, Bob, here's the thing. You've got your branding people over here, and you got your salespeople over here, and they don't talk to each other. And your salespeople are trying to figure out how to get more sales. And your branding people over here are talking about things that these salespeople don't understand. And you're spending all this money on branding and marketing, yet it's not generating any leads for your salespeople. And your salespeople are being factually left high and dry by your marketing people. And your marketing people should get their you-know-what together and actually do something effective to help drive leads and give the content to your salespeople. And I guarantee you, if I get the salespeople in this room and ask them about the marketing department, they're going to roll their eyes. And then I'm going to ask them the magic question, and I want you to listen. And I don't want you to invalidate these salespeople. So he goes, okay. So I brought in the salespeople, and I said, hey, I've been potentially going to be hired to work with Bob, and I just wanted to know what you thought about the marketing of this company. And they all at first kind of smiled because the CEO was there. They're like, oh, we love our branding. We love our marketing materials. And I said, I understand that the CEO's in the room. I've briefed the CEO that you can be honest with me. Can you tell me what you actually think of the marketing materials? And for a half an hour, they went on how they hated their marketing materials. So I said, great. I said, I'm going to give you a magic lamp, imaginary magic lamp, a genie's lamp. You get 3 wishes. Write them down. We gave those wishes to the CEO, and within months, we created all the marketing material that the salespeople wanted. You know what happened the first year? We increased sales by 35% by giving the salespeople the content they wanted. What I did is I made branding and sales come together as a team and work together to actually increase the viability of the organization. I go over that extensively in my book, Power Branding Secrets. What that problem is, how you have to get C-level buy-in to solve that problem, and how sales and marketing can work together. I also go over video marketing. I go over podcasting. I go over native advertising. I go over tons of different topics. And all of these things are actionable. I give checklists, resources, URLs of companies over and over and over. This is chock full of information. So my half hour is up. I want to appreciate all of you guys for being with me, and I'm glad that you took the time to actually listen to what I had to say. And go to powerbrandingsecrets.com. On that website, I have a list of all the chapters of that book. Obviously, I don't have the book on there, but it lists out all the chapters. I have a basic overview of what the book's about, a little bit about me, some reviews, and I've already written about 25 blog posts so far on that, so I go over lots of information about branding for real estate agents. I go over how to pick your best branding agency. I have blogs on local SEO, video marketing, you name it, and I'll be continuing to write more blogs as it goes, so please follow me on all my social media. And then in the future, I won't be going just over an overview of my book. In future Periscopes and future Google Hangouts and YouTube videos, I'll be getting more in depth on each point of this as kind of a series to educate people on branding and how to do it. So good luck to you. Thanks for being here. I hope you got something out of it, and may your brand grow and your revenue grow even more. Bye-bye.